So I was just thinking about my vision of the coexistence, the future coexistence of cyclists, pedestrians, and automobile drivers. Okay. So here in Manhattan Beach, you have this this path, right? And this path, it's for cyclists and joggers, but it's a little bit narrow, and there's a lot of cyclists, and I think the cyclists get a little bit annoyed that they have to share the space with pedestrians, joggers, and such. Part of the path, when you go down longer, there is more of a separate path. There should be separate paths for joggers from the cyclists. But what I've noticed is there's kind of like a hierarchy, right? Where, you know, like on the roads where there's drivers get really pissed at cyclists, right? Cyclists get pissed at drivers sometimes too. I remember I was Ubering a lady, and there were some cyclists, and she was like, she goes, I hate cyclists, blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of thinking, wow, that's kind of like extreme, right? But like a lot of people in the car culture feel like the cyclists get in the way a lot and don't always obey by the rules, because actually there are different rules for cyclists a little bit, you know. For instance, like, you can kind of go a little bit on the sidewalks, a little bit here and there when you're on a bike, you know, and stuff you couldn't do with the car. But what I was thinking about, there's this hierarchy in car culture where cars are given the most deference out of everybody, right? We have the roads built for the cars. We have it's easier in our culture to live your life with a car, right? And I think that's okay to an extent. What we should really think about is a lot of the reason why people don't want to ride their bikes more is because it's dangerous and it's not really set up for cyclists, So if there is more incentive to setting stuff up for cycling, like for instance, the same way that we have freeways for cars, there should be freeways for bikes, right? And so there should be more incentive for cycling. And maybe even like a shower at a restaurant. So if you cycle 20 miles, you could take a little shower when you get to the restaurant. There should just be more of an awareness of cycle culture and more of a acceptance of it, I think. And because right now I feel like there's a bit of a disharmony with everything. If you're going down Main Street in Santa Monica, it's very chaotic the way there's every kind of lime scooter and car and pedestrian. You have to really focus to not get in an accident, right? Whereas I think that there should be more divisions by where each one is allowed, right? I think LA has gotten a little bit better though. There are like more arteries of cycling paths that go through LA than there used to be. But I think that there needs to be more like for instance, if you're going down the PCH toward Malibu, there's really not a good path for bikes. There is a little bit of a shoulder, but a lot of times the cars kind of have to whiz around the cyclists. So there's not a very good path, and a lot of cyclists like that path, So, but there should be something done about the way that a lot of the places are not convenient for cycling, because I think that if it was more convenient, more people would cycle and it would free up the traffic, right? So a lot of people get mad at cyclists, but I'm like, yeah, but if more people were on their bikes, less people would be in their cars, right? So I think that more deference has to be given to, look at these guys on the e-bike, a lot of e-bikes out there. I think that, I always think about one time I was riding my bike in Beverly Hills, and this lady in a huge, fat Rolls Royce little doggy was saying, "You're taking up the whole road." All I was doing was like trying to not bump into cars, right? And this lady in a big car was saying that I was taking up the whole road, right? So, I think something has to be done in terms of, like, the way we think about it, right? Who should be given most deference is the people that are taking up the least amount of room, right? So, like, if you're pedestrian or a cyclist, there should be more encouragement for that, you know, because the more encouragement there is to travel that way, the more better society will be, the more fit people will be. And the reason why a lot of people don't like cyclists is because there's a disharmony with the way that cyclists and cars, I think, should not be on the same roads. There should be a separate artery for the cyclist. You shouldn't have to go on the road very much with the other cars if you're on a bike, you know. That's the whole issue, you know. There should be separate arteries for joggers, and also the difference between cyclists and mechanical and e-bikes, you know. You know, a lot of times you see these people on e-bikes and they're just speeding down the sidewalk or whatever. There's not like as many rules for e-bikes, and yet it can be dangerous the way that they're kind of implemented. So I just think there has to be more of a harmony between pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. And people also need to listen to each other's viewpoints instead of just saying, I hate cyclists, or like, people that drive cars suck, you know. There's kind of like, there's kind of reasons for everything, right? Like, you know, if you have a family or something, you know, you could put them all on a big push bike thing or whatever, a panda bike, but, you know, sometimes it's easier to have a car when you have a family, right? Or if you're hauling music equipment, you know. There's a lot, or if you're like, you know, a lot of times I sleep in my car, or I camp out in my car, or whatever, you know. So there's reasons to have a car, and there's reasons to use a bike. So it shouldn't all be like poo-pooed or whatever. It's just that, like, I just think that the more encouraged it is to go without the car, the better, you know. So, like, how cool would it be if, like, there was little stations where, like a bicycle freeway, where there's little, like, cabins you could rent for real cheap just to sleep in, maybe take a shower, you know? Bicycle superhighway, that's my vision.